Retro.
Hi, this is Claudia Gray, the author of several Star Wars books, and you are listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. May the Force be with you.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithling.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And we've reached the end of yet another week. So that means it's time to take a look at some recent Star Wars news. But before we dive into the latest from the galaxy far, far away, Jay will remind everybody where we can be found around the internet.
Sure thing, Dennis. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. I don't even know why I say Twitter.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking about just deactivating it. We haven't posted anything there for a long, long time. But just when we do that, it's going to pick up. But anyway.
All
right. Okay. Well, the dish is aligned. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We're now broadcasting to the galaxy. This is the week's Star Wars news. Most of it is going to come out of New York Comic Con, but we have one non-New York Comic Con story to go through first. We have Skeleton Crew coming up in the beginning of December, and director David Lowery was doing an interview, and I neglected to write down where that was from, but that doesn't matter. And he revealed that the teak creature species is going to be making an appearance in Skeleton Crew. This was while he was doing a interview, and he was talking about the puppets that they were using. Apparently, they're using a lot of puppets in Skeleton Crew, and they've been filming on the volume. But he just kind of let slip that this character from the Battle of Endor is going to be returning to Star Wars in a more official capacity. So refresh my memory, Jay. I feel like we've talked about this in the past, and I can't remember what you said. Had you ever seen Battle of Endor?
No, I haven't. And, there's so many things that are coming out of all of these little movies that I feel like, gosh, I'm missing out, as a Star Wars fan. I'm going to lose my fan club card here if I don't get on this soon.
Yeah, we're going to probably have to put this on the list. The Battle of Endor and Caravan of Courage are the two Ewok movies that George Lucas made, and talk about them sometime next year, just because there's been, like you said, a lot of references to them. Okay, so you're probably not familiar with teak, but I'm assuming you've seen the picture at some point.
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay, yeah. Were you familiar with that character at all before? Put this in our news for this week.
No, I was not. And it's funny because I saw it come up on Instagram too. And at first I thought it was something out of like the Planet of the Apes movies, like maybe a permanent Planet of the Apes movies. And I was like, oh, wait, oh, no, this is Star Wars. What is this? And so then, of course, I started reading a little bit more about it. So once again, yeah, I felt like, gosh, I should really watch these. So I think we do have to put this on our list for next year, because that'll force me to do it, which is a good thing.
Right. I mean, they're not spectacular. I've got some nostalgia for them because I watched them a lot as a kid. And when they were on, because if my memory serves, these movies were like shown overseas, and they were never released cinematically or in cinemas here in the States. And then they were eventually shown on television as a special, and we recorded them as you did back in the 80s, on VHS. And then I watched it over and over again because, hey, it was Star Wars.
Right.
It starred a number of people, probably the most famous of which is Wilford Brimley. Warwick Davis reprised his role as Wicket. But there was this little creature called Teak that hanged out with Wilford Brimley's character, whose name was Noah. And I don't know how you exactly would describe him. I mean, I think you kind of gave us a good idea. I suppose, it would have been something that was like out of Planet of the Apes. It's this little, couple foot tall critter, kind of looks like a cross between an ugly dog and an ape of some sort, I suppose. And It wears clothes. It doesn't talk, but it can kind of like communicate with Wilford Brimley through gestures, and they kind of know what they're talking about. But it's like really fast. It can run around like super fast.
Ah.
And yeah, and so anyways, it was one of the good guys in the show and everything like that. And so yeah, so one of these is going to be appearing in Skeleton Crew, and I mean, I guess why not? If they can bring the blurgs from the Battle of Endor into the rest of canon through the Clone Wars and then live action, if the Mandalorian, then why not Teak? It's I don't know. I just this kind of surprised me though that this was the choice.
Well, yeah, I have a couple thoughts on that actually.
Mhm.
And first of all, I have to say, now that I'm looking at him even closer, he's got Alf vibes. Do you remember that show,
Yeah,
Alf? So
yeah,
he's got
in the
little
face,
Alf
definitely.
vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I applaud the fact that they're going deep to the well.
Mhm.
Once again, Star Wars leaves nothing, there's always a bit of truth in legends. And so they leave nothing out there that could possibly not be untouched. And just the fact that they're using the practical effects for the puppetry, I just think that that's so awesome. And I always love to see the practical effects. And I really treasure that.
Mhm.
And the other thing to that too is when you had mentioned that the blurgs came out of this, I did not realize that. So that's a trivia piece that I did not know. I knew that the one rifle, the ambient rifle,
Mhm.
came from the Star Wars holiday special,
Yeah.
that Din Djarin used, but I didn't realize that the blurgs came from this stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. Okay, we've talked all around it now, and not like there's a ton to spoil or anything like that. But yeah, we're gonna put these on the list for 2025 at some point. We're not going to do a series out of it where we talk about them in 10-minute blocks over the course of the year. We'll save that for the major cinematic releases, but each one of them is worth an episode. So yeah, we'll definitely have to hit that.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I love how you said, yeah, they're not great, but it's on your Star Wars bingo card, just like the holiday special. You got to watch them. So I
I
need to watch
Yeah, I will say this:
it.
it's better than the Ewoks animated series that was on Saturday mornings. That cartoon,
Hmm.
way better than that, in my opinion. And they kind of brought those characters forward into some of the from a certain point of view stories that we've been getting. So,
Right, right. But there's definitely a certain segment of the fandom that I've noticed that really holds these movies very beloved. And I think that's awesome.
oh, definitely, definitely, yeah. I mean, like I said, I have a lot of nostalgia for them, and I can. There's some lines that I still remember from that movie, and some instances as of some things that happened. It'll be weird to revisit it. So,
Hmm.
okay, okay. Well, let's set that aside. We'll definitely be talking about it sometime in the next couple of months after the turn of the year, and we kind of get through our end of the year programming that we've already had underway and we've been discussing for a while. And let's turn to the news that's coming out of New York Comic Con. I gotta admit, I forgot New York Comic Con was happening until I started seeing stuff on Instagram about it. But Lucasfilm was there. It's more accurate to say Lucasfilm Publishing was there because they didn't do anything with respect to what's coming on Disney Plus or The Mandalorian and Grogu or any of the live action type stuff or animated stuff. But they gave us a bunch of news and teases and reveals for books and comics. And so we're going to kind of go through some of what came out of there. It's quite the collection of things. I was a little surprised after San Diego Comic Con and such that there was more to reveal, but here we are. We've already talked about the fact that they're going to be doing some graphic novels from Dark Horse, but they reveal a couple of covers. The first of which is for Grievous, and the other is for Mace Windu. And I say Mace Windu, but they're just calling it Mace. Oh, by the way, there's a character named Mace in the Battle of Endor. Coincidence.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know anything else about these stories other than the covers, but they look cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can get these new stories, I mean, I'm all for it. So I
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. Anything. Just go back to that well.
I hadn't been keeping up with the hyperspace stories, hyperspace adventures when they were with IDW, and I haven't picked them up really since they've switched over to Dark Horse. But there's enough coming out that I kind of feel like maybe I'm going to have to start reading some of these things. So,
Mhm.
and for instance, the next thing they teased is that there is a Qui-Gon adventure novel, a graphic novel coming out, and it kind of telling parallel stories. One where he is Padawan to Count Dooku, and the other where he is Master to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And both of their stories, and this is what caught my attention, are connected to the mysterious Brotherhood of the Ninth Door, which we got
Oh,
to know in Phase 2 of the High Republic.
that's a cool tie-in.
Yeah, yeah, because they can kind of make you see things and disguise their appearances and stuff through the Force. So,
Right.
yeah, I'll be curious to see what they end up doing with that.
Awesome.
And yeah, and then yet another Dark Horse hyperspace story type thing is we are getting a Poe Dameron comic miniseries. And it's being described as set in the lead up to the events of Star Wars The Force Awakens. The comic will feature the hotshot Resistance pilot and his faithful droid BB-8 on a new adventure. So this is coming from Ethan Sachs, and he's done several comics, Star Wars comics for Marvel. So this one is also caught my, made me kind of sit up and take notice.
Now, there was another Poe Dameron series that came out, correct?
There was, and that was the third ongoing series written, and it was written by Charles Soule, as a matter of fact.
Oh, nice.
And it ended, I think, after 25, 26 issues or so. But that
Okay.
was pretty good. I enjoyed that one. I enjoyed pretty much everything Charles Soules does, and we'll get an opportunity to talk about him more in a bit. But what are you thinking about this Poe Dameron? I mean, the extent we know anything about it, it leads into the Force Awakens.
Well, I like the fact that it's almost a backstory in a lot of
Mhm.
ways because, we meet up with Poe obviously in The Force Awakens in our first true introduction to him. So, I always say I like me a good backstory. So, anything leading up to that from that point of view, from his point of view would be cool. And I love the cover on this. Him in his cockpit, blowing stuff up. So it's perfect.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about exactly how and when they're going to set this, because that other Poe Dameron comic you were talking about, written by Charles Soule, does get into some of his history prior to his joining the Resistance when he was a pilot with the Republic. And then back in the days when they were doing the Journey to the Force Awakens publishing initiative before the release of that movie, they had it's a middle grade book, but I would actually say it's probably somewhere actually on level between middle grade and young adult. But it had backstories for Poe, Finn, and Ray that have kind of been
Mm-hmm.
trampled upon, if I'm being honest. But that one also described Poe Dameron's recruitment into the Resistance. But I mean, I could see this if it's set in the lead up to the events of Star Wars: The Force Awakens, that maybe this is the mission that got him to Jakku. And
Ah, okay.
there's a TIE fighter in the back of the image that they're teasing on StarWars.com. So
Mhm.
maybe he was evading the First Order on his way there, and then they just happened to figure out where he went, and that's what led to that massacre in that village there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I'd
I'll
like
guess
to
it.
see that kinda tie together for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. We'd already been told about the Bad Batch comic from Dark Horse that's coming, but they
Yes.
showed and talked more about that. So we'll skip over this. And then, speaking of the High Republic, they showed quite a bit of imagery from there. There's a there's a 4-issue connecting cover, which is kind of cool. It
That is
shows,
really cool.
the Nile, Marchion Row, various Jedi, and other members of the Republic there. And, go to StarWars.com, check it out yourself. But then they're going to, I guess the thing that they tease out there is there's going to be a major battle of Ariadu, I guess, coming up here in
Yes.
Phase 3. But that's all we really know about it. And then there is a look, I guess, the characters of Lula and Zine, who we've had occasion to talk a little bit about on this show. They're getting married in this comic,
Mhm.
which I don't know what I think about that. And part of it is because I just haven't been keeping up with the High Republic adventures. But one of them is a Jedi here.
Right.
So is this something the Jedi are just permitting, or is she leaving the Order, or what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. I thought that too because I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, this is a very interesting twist on, those particular characters."
Mhm.
And I'm interested also in the fact that the way that they show this particular first look is completely black and white. So
Yeah.
is this going to be like a coloring page? Because it's crazy coloring page. Like it keep you busy for hours.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know or if the comic is just gonna be a black and white comic or what the situation is gonna be because, I mean, we say black and white, but it's almost just like inks and pencils here, not a ton of
Hmm.
shading, going
Right.
on
That's
as
what I mean. Like
well.
it looks like a coloring
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't really interesting. I mean, I don't know who all the I can't pick out all the characters that are, here, but, a lot of people, and I think a number of them are clearly Jedi. They're wearing Jedi robes. So
Hmm.
if this is the wedding guests, then clearly there's no ill will towards Zine or Lulu, I
Right.
should say, getting married.
Yeah. And is that Maz Kanata I see in the front?
It is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't decide if this is something I'm going to follow up on or not. And I only say that because, like I said, I've fallen behind on the High Republic adventure side of things, and I don't feel like it's caused me to really miss out on the story
Hmm.
for that. And there's just so much on my plate when it comes to
Yeah.
Star Wars that I need to catch up. I mean, like the Marvel comics, I'm way, way, way behind on. So
Hmm.
anyway, but we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
The comics are great. I mean,
Hmm.
I if it wasn't for this show, honestly, I probably wouldn't take the time to read them like I have, but there are so many of them that
Hmm.
you're right. I mean, at some point you got to pick and choose and just prioritize, what are your favorite storylines and what are your favorite characters to follow and, not let that FOMO get to you.
Right. Well, and that was the thing when they um, started doing comics again back in 2015. We had the Star Wars comic, we had the Darth Vader comic, and then there was Princess Leia as a miniseries. So you had at most 3 issues to keep up with a month, which is very, very doable. But then, recently they had 4 ongoing titles, and then a number of other miniseries that they were doing on a regular basis. And it was just, next thing you know, you're doing like 6, 7, 8 comics a month, which is a bit more of a challenge. So,
Hmm. Yeah, for
not to
sure.
mention, not cheap. When these
Yeah.
things come in at,
Yeah.
typically, five, if, not $7 or $8 sometimes a piece.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, even the digital copies.
yeah. Well, then we also have this one I'm actually excited for, and I think I will seek out mainly because it's got Captain Scott involved. But
Hmm.
there is a collection of stories called Dispatches from the Occlusion Zone. And again, this is going to be another comic also displayed to us in black and white here. So maybe they're doing black and white, but this one's got a lot more shading. So definitely not the coloring aspect to it. But so we're going to be getting again. We're familiar with the Occlusion Zone from what we've been reading in the High Republic, and that there was the Nile set up their storm wall and trapped everyone behind it, and so we're getting these 3 stories. Kevin Scott's gonna be writing about Ty York, the Monster Hunter, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
Uh, Daniel Jose Older is writing a story about Emmerich Kaftor, who was in the what was that series called? But Daniel Jose Older wrote it was kind of a mystery where Kaftor was investigating what had happened to Logan Greatstorm.
Oh, yes.
Right. And
Mhm.
what was the private investigator that he teamed up with? I can't remember her name off the
Oh,
top of my head.
shoot. I know. It
The
was a good
redhead.
team up. Mhm.
Yeah. And they went to investigate that, and then they like ended up cutting off the leg of one of the nameless and bringing it back, brought it back
Mhm.
to the Republic to study. So he's doing that, and then Alyssa Wong is writing a cat and mouse story featuring Drigget and Rue. And for the life of me, I cannot remember who they are if I ever knew to begin with.
No, I'm with you. I'm like, "Okay, Drigget and Rue, that's those are new to me." And they may
Yeah.
be in some of the other, series or even, middle grade novels too that are being
I'm
brought out.
Yeah, and I'm guessing probably the High Republic Adventures. So, which, like
Okay.
I just admitted, I have not been keeping up on.
Okay.
So, okay, but in more comic news, this just keeps coming.
Well, real
Alyssa,
quick, before we
yeah,
go on, I
mhm,
have to say that this artwork that they have, the one that's in color, reminds me of Mr. Blue Sky from ELO. If you've ever seen the cover for that Electric
okay,
Light Orchestra thing, you'll have to look that up.
okay, okay,
So,
yeah,
when
all
we're
right,
talking about things that look like other things, that's the first thing that I thought of. So, anyways,
hmm
as you were, soldier.
sure. So, speaking of Alyssa Wong, she's going to be writing a one-shot Battle of Ariadu comic. So this seems like, as many mentions as it got in the write-up about what was going on in New York Comic Con, seems like it's going to be a major event. And I would suspect that we'll be reading about it as well in the books.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Iriada is a busy place in the High
Yes, it
Republic.
is. Yes, it
So,
is indeed.
and then Justina Ireland is going to be contributing again to the High Republic with a story about Vernestra Rowe. And what I like about this is it's from her time as a Padawan before the High Republic Phase 1, and she's going to be learning some sort of a lesson from her master, Stellan Gios. And I'm excited to get more of him because we simply did not get enough before they killed him off.
Yeah, so this is like a real flashback here. That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. And then Kevin Scott is at it again with the High Republic Adventures Annual and a story featuring Baron Bulin. He's the one that's been modifying Nameless and Jedi and all kinds of people. I'm just going to move past that because we don't really have any art or details beyond that. But this one I was excited to talk to you about. We got concept art for Avar Kriss, Aslan Rel, Bel Zettifar, Buriagar, Elzar Mann as they prepare to fight the Nile and the Nameless. And this armor / robes that they're wearing is wild.
Yeah,
It looks like a combination of the High Republic robes with the Clone War style armor and the Jedi Temple Guardians.
Yes.
But they wear as well. And considering that they're all wearing some variation of the same mask and armor, I'm assuming this stuff is like specially enhanced for fighting the Nameless. I don't have anything to confirm that, but you may recall we got some concept art from San Diego Comic-Con that was similar to this, except for none of them were wearing the mask in it. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that you're hitting the nail right on the head with that one, because otherwise, what purpose does the mask really serve? And I'm wondering if it's something very similar to what Khmer used in the Acolyte, that it was more of a sensory deprivation kind of a thing, where maybe that way the Nameless can't control them or can't take them
Well,
over.
and that came up in the last book, right? When they were fighting the Nameless, and they drew away the fear from Elzar so that he could take the one on.
Right.
I think you're onto something there. I suspect this mask has probably got some sort of a property like that it can draw away the emotions and the fear so that they can take them on without losing themselves to it.
Right, right. And if that's the case, it'll be very wow. I mean, just think about the implications of that and what that would mean going forward, but yet we don't see it. But is that what the temple guards ended up having? You know what I mean? So that's just kind of interesting, because maybe the temple guards were a remnant of these sensory helmets. I'm kind of like going off here on a tangent, but maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. They got to make action figures of these guys.
Oh man, I'm telling you what.
I mean, they don't have them to begin with for the most part, but now, but these in particular just are wild. These are really, there's been a lot of cool looks that have come out of the High Republic, but this is some of the coolest stuff.
It really
as far
is.
as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's very medieval looking too, as well, which I think from the beginning, a lot of the concept for the High Republic was kind of in that aesthetic. So of course, here's me looking at this going, cosplay?
Yeah, I can see that. Go for it. That'd be amazing. I really like the way Buriaga looks at it with like the Wookiee armor that he's got there. They're all just spectacular. If you haven't done this, you got to go to StarWars.com and check out these images. They're pretty wild. I wish that these guys would show up this way in the comics, because I'd love to see more of this, as opposed, because we're probably just beyond this. We're probably just going to get it on the cover of some books, because the comics are kind of exploring a different story at the moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I am kind of curious though. Aslan Rel's only got more of a half mask. It's almost like, if anybody's a fan of Sleep Token, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say that. So hers isn't covering her whole face.
Well, he is the Jedi that gouged out his eyes. You'll notice there's no eye holes in his mask.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That fell to the dark side after the manga from phase 2 of the High Republic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll notice he's got that
crossing
cane.
my streams.
Right. So I think So I wonder, I suspect that's got something to do because he's been working with Reese Silas on a way to counteract the Nameless and stuff. And he's also been off on some, I'm not sure if I want to necessarily call them missions, but research with Yoda. And, he's done some things that have driven Yoda kind of up the wall. So anyway.
But I'll tell you what, I am so out of touch with all the High Republic stuff. Like everything that you're saying now is like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, the reason for that, Jay, is it hasn't been coming as fast this phase as it did in the previous phases. They've really spaced it out. And so there's a lot of time. And then when you get a book, the High Republic adult books don't necessarily always feature the same characters as the young adults and very different characters in the middle grades. And then there's different stories being told in the comics. So while they're all being told around the same events, the war with the Nile, they're coming at it from different angles. And so it's easy to lose some of the details in the presentation that they've been giving us. So,
well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Yeah. Well, it does take some jogging of the memory, I found. I'm already behind on the current young adult novel that George Mann just put out, Tears of the Nameless. So, and he's done some spectacular work. So we got to catch up. But
Yes,
be
we
looking
do.
for a review on that sometime in the next month. Okay. Well, next on the list was there is a story coming from another story coming from Justina Ireland, which is the next middle grade book called A Valiant Vow that will be featuring Emery Kantoros, who is Vernestra's Padawan, and Tep Tep, who is one of the Jedi children that showed up in the last middle grade novel. I got to tell you, the middle grade books are, if I'm being honest, they're fine. They're not particularly spectacular, and there's not much that comes out of them that you can't pick up from context in the young adult and adult books. I will definitely read it at some point, but it's not a priority. But I don't know. What do you think of this?
No, I think that's fair. And there's a reason why these are kind of put into the different categories that they are, because they appeal to that particular age group. So, I don't necessarily think that it has to be, vital material for us to cover, but, it might be if we have time to do it, then it'd be fun. So, yeah,
We
and
have
it's kind
yet
of
to cover a middle grade book from the High Republic on the show yet, so I
like
don't think that's going to be the first one.
but yeah, no, I get it. And it's just like young Jedi adventures too. It's great for the age
Mhm.
level it's intended for. Is it absolutely necessary? Probably not.
No, definitely not. I'm kidding. All right. Well, I think we spent enough time on that. Claudia Gray returns. I feel like it's been a while since we got a book from her.
Right?
She is the author for Into the Light, which you may notice was the reverse of Into the Dark, the first book that she wrote for the High Republic. And front and center on the cover is Jedi Knight Reese Silas on Kashyyyk, which is infected by the Blight.
Oh, no, say it ain't so.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
obviously it recovers. So.
yeah. I mean, it's you hate to see that happen to Kashyyyk, but we also know that Kashyyyk is around 150 years later.
Right,
So,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
there's only so concerned we can get about that one.
Sure. I'm just tickled that
Um,
we're getting something from Claudia Gray. I love her work. And
yeah, I like
yeah.
her work too. She's one of those authors that's very challenging, I think. She writes something that is absolutely like the most intricate thing in Star Wars and is incredible. And then there's others that, I don't know, I feel like go off on a tangent that I'm not as fond of, but she's written a lot of great stuff in Star Wars. So I'm very eager to check this one out, especially if it features on Wreath as much as it looks like it might by putting it on the cover.
Right.
I feel like he kind of got underused after she introduced him by the rest of the authors. He's shown up in a much more of a bit role in other things. There was a young adult book that he showed up in wave 3 of phase 1, I believe. But beyond that, I don't feel like he got the attention that he's probably due. So we'll see what
Oh,
happens.
I agree. I agree. He's a great character.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got Tessa Gratton is releasing an Acolyte tie-in book featuring Yord and Jeki called the Crystal Crown. Now, this one got teased back at San Diego Comic-Con, and we were wondering how central Yord and Jeki were going to be to that book, or if they were just promoting the fact that they are going to be in the book. Well, if this cover is anything to go by, they appear to be the main characters.
Right.
So they take up the whole cover. So yeah, that's something to look forward to next year. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I'm super excited about that. I love
Mhm.
Jackie, so I'm excited to be able to be reunited with her in this way. And Tessa
Mhm.
Gratton is funny because I just
Yes.
got my Audible like quarterly review of my listening habits, and it
Mhm.
said that I've spent the most time with Tessa Gratton so far this year. So looking
Okay.
forward to spending a little more time.
Yeah, I'll be eager to see what they do with this one. Yeah. So, wow, we're definitely going long. Our news episode's been lucky to make 20 minutes lately, and we're already over 30. So we'll kind of get through the rest of these as quick as we can. But we get Lorna D, it looks like, in spades, because she will be, from the looks of it, she's front and center on the High Republic comic that they tease that's coming from Kevin Scott. That will, I guess, be the next volume in there, because I think this is issue 2 that they're showing. And we've got
Mm.
Kelnaka and other Republic types like kind of crumpled at her feet. So that they're teasing us that has she gone back to her old ways? I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But the far more intriguing image that they
Indeed.
released is from Random World House's audio original novel Tempest Breaker, also written by Kevin Scott. And it's got Marcion Rowe and Lorna D dancing a tango.
Yeah,
Uh, I can't
quite
tell
literally.
exactly where they are. There's other Nile around, but I can't make out in the background if those are also Nile characters or who we're looking at. But I mean, they're like face to face, cheek to cheek in this image. And I don't know how those two can be in the same room without killing each other at this point.
Yeah. And I have to say that where they are in this particular image looks like a very grand palace of some type
Hmm.
with very gold ornate, filigree with some beautiful marble structures. So it almost makes me wonder if this is something that they had conquered and now they're dancing away to celebrate, kind of a thing. But yeah, I have to say, out of everything, this audio is the one that I'm probably looking forward to the most.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they do such. Calvin Scott, in particular, does a lot of great things with Lorna D, and
Oh
I've
yeah.
enjoyed the audio dramas, audio books. They're calling this an audio original novel and not an audio drama. So I don't know if that is just a slip or if that's what they actually mean. Would have been nice to actually be at this panel or to watch it to find out.
Right. Yeah.
But he's done some spectacular stuff with her in the audio originals that they've done. So yeah, I can't wait to check that out because she's dressed pretty formally there.
Yeah.
This is not the usual look for her in her
Right.
Nile battle armor. So
Yeah. And so is Martian. I mean, he's wearing almost like High Republic robes with his fur, kind of a thing. It's very, that
yeah,
gold
that big
throughout
fur
as
cape
well.
that he's always wearing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, then we've got some teases of some comic covers for Mark Guggenheim's new series focused on Jedi Knights. This will have stories also about Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu, Yoda, and more. And the one that they teased on the cover is Yoda. It's kind of that style that they did for The Force Awakens, where they had the
Yes.
characters looking at you and then holding up a blaster, or Rey and her staff, or Finn and the lightsaber and stuff like that. This is Yoda with the green lightsaber covering half his face. I think
Hmm.
that'd be very hard to see behind your lightsaber if you did that, but
Yeah.
that's
A
neither
little
here nor there.
blinding.
Yeah. Lydia Kang is going to be continuing to write some Battle of Iriadu stories for High Republic Adventures. And then we've also got some artwork teased by Charles Soule and Zoraida Carver for their entries in the Star Wars High Republic Adventures annual, also coming from Dark Horse. So that's the second time we've had that mentioned. So lots of great stuff that was mentioned at New York Comic Con. But then they waited a few days to give us a big surprise, and that is Charles Soule is writing another Star Wars comic with art by Luke Ross, arriving February 5th, 2025, and that is titled Star Wars Legacy of Vader. It features Kylo Ren after The Last Jedi and prior to The Rise of Skywalker, dealing with the aftermath of the events of The Last Jedi and becoming the supreme leader. So, Jay, what did you think about this story?
Okay, this is fantastic. I am
Mm-hmm.
super excited for this one. And just the way that they talk it up here and what Kylo Ren is going through at the time
Mm-hmm.
and all of the things that he's dealing with. I'm in hook, line, and sinker for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like because Charles Soule wrote the Rise of Kylo Ren, that
Hmm.
that miniseries, and he's written other stories about Kylo, and he seems to have a real great grasp on that character.
He
The
does.
blurb that you're referring to here is Kylo is truly lost at this particular moment. In a very short span of time, he's faced two of the most he's faced two of his most significant mentors in combat, one of whom is his uncle, killed his own father, almost killed his mother, stolen control of a galaxy level military that he has no idea how he'll use, and of course found a deep connection with another Force user named Rey. All of this is swirling around in his emotional matrix, making him deeply unstable, angry, frustrated, dangerous. He's looking for any form of guidance that he can get, even if he won't admit it. And so he turns to just about the only thing he's got left, the legacy of his grandfather, the Sith Lord Darth Vader. And then they go on to tease that he's going to go to Vader's castle on Mustafar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, do it.
Oh,
I want to see
love
what's
that.
there at this point.
Heck
And,
yeah.
and what, if any, Vader artifacts he's going to find when he gets there.
For sure. Yes, I'm so excited just to get inside Kylo Ren's head and just to see what's making him tick right now,
Mm-hmm,
at this point in time. Because me, I love all that psychological stuff,
mm-hmm.
and all of the, picking apart of all of that in these characters. So yes, this is so cool.
And the other thing that they tease is he's going to go to Tatooine. Well, he'll learn secrets of the family's past.
That's
And
another one. It's like, give me chills.
yeah, well, what's intriguing about that is like, so if he ends up at the Lars homestead, what's he going to find there?
Oh, wow.
Especially when you consider the fact, that's where Rey ends up going at the Rise of Skywalker. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's making my head spin right now. Very
so
cool.
yeah, I
Looking
can't,
forward to
yeah, I mean, I was just bemoaning the fact that I'm so far behind on my
it.
comics, but this one may have to jump to the front of the list when it comes out in February. So,
Oh, I agree. I'm right there with you.
yeah. All right. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
we got about Star Wars Storytelling. And I'm happy for that because it kind of feels like things have been stale for a little bit. They teased some of this back in July at San Diego Comic-Con, but it was good to see them follow up on it and talk more about some of the directions they're going with these things. May
Mhm.
not be giving us a whole bunch of detail on what's going on in Disney Plus and with the movies at the moment, but hey, publishing is keeping us going, so we'll take it.
Indeed.
All right. Well, then, thank you all for joining us for the episode of Podcast Stardust and our discussion of the week's Star Wars news, mainly featuring what came out of New York Comic Con. But hey, we got to talk about Teak too. That was fun. So hope you've enjoyed the episode. And if you did, then please consider subscribing on your podcatcher of choice and do all the other podcast type things. Rate, review, like, whatever your podcatcher features as those options. And then when you've done that, if you want to check out more content, one of the best places to do that is to head over to retrozap.com, where you can find the entire catalog of shows, all previous 798 episodes that we've got, as well as some other great shows such as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Case Files, Doomcast, Love, Death, and Robots Stuff, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, Enjoy Stuff, I was blending two shows there, Superhero Suite, Warp Trails, and more. And yeah, of course, we appreciate your ratings, reviews. Jay, remind everybody where we can be found online again and some of our other homes.
Sure. So the best places to reach us are definitely on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And then we also do maintain our X/Twitter presence over there as well. But we do have some Pinterest boards that you can check out with tons of different Star Wars ideas. And then we also have our YouTube and YouTube music outlets that are really great for checking out all of our episodes and do support interactions and reviews as well. So please head over to both of those, like, subscribe, and share those out with your friends. And if you would like to join us for some real time chatter, we do have a Discord room on the RetroZap Discord server. So all of those shows that Dennis just got done running down also have all of their own rooms as well. So you're bound to find something fun to talk about. So if you're interested in that, just hit up the link in our show notes. Also in our show notes is the link to our TeePublic store, where we have 7 different show logo designs available on all kinds of products from t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, even home goods such as wall hangings and tote bags and the like. So once again, you can hit up that link in our show notes.
All right, Jay, you want to give everyone the latest on what you have got going on in cosplay?
Sure. So right now, I've just wrapped up a couple of local events, and I do have a event coming up on November 9th at a local library where I'll be doing like a makerspace kind of fair sort of a thing. So that one's going to be fun. And then my next big con will be GalaxyCon Columbus in December. But until then, you can join me for all the fun on my Instagram, which is at j.snipscosplay, and you can catch me as Ahsoka, the fourth sister, Hera, two different versions, as well as my original concept Mandalorian, and plenty of other things as well. So head on over to j.snipscosplay. You never know what you're going to find.
Okay. Going on the show, I know last time I said that on Monday we're going to be getting back into the Clone Wars. Well, I goofed because Monday is episode 800 of Podcast Stardust. Not only that, we'll be celebrating 5 years of Podcast Stardust. We just had that anniversary a couple days ago. So join us then as we kind of talk about some stuff going on with the podcast, some things that we've done in the past 100 episodes and what we're looking forward to in the future. And then on Wednesday, we're going to be celebrating Halloween a day early. So come join us for that as we talk about Tales from the Rancor Pit by Calvin Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for listening to episode 799 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. And until next time, may the Force be